Are you going to tell him the whole truth right now? A woman's voice, worried and shrill, rings out over the slamming doors and the anxious hum of the hospital corridor. It'll break his heart. I can't stay silent anymore, screams a skinny girl with pain in her eyes. She is 12 years old and her name is Sky. She is the daughter of a world-famous musician named Jay-Z. Let him blame me, but I can't hide what happened. A policewoman in uniform tries to calm her confusion. Tell me, Sky, no one will believe you unless you explain everything from start to finish. Even if they don't believe me, Sky whispers, clenching her fists, I have to. The most interesting part is coming. Stay with us to find out how it all ends. In the meantime, like and subscribe to the channel so you don't lose it. Sky feels herself spinning with tension. The sickly white walls of the hospital weigh on her mind, and the sounds of the IVs and the smell of bleach only add to her anxiety. She knows that the fate of her family, her reputation, and perhaps her entire life depend on the words she speaks. How did it all come to this merciless moment? Just yesterday, Sky lived in her cozy world, albeit a world of luxury, where her father is the most influential rapper on the planet, and the house is always full of assistants, security guards, and other employees, ready to fulfill any whim of the Star family. But was this real happiness? Deep down, Sky knew it wasn't. She often wondered, what if all this luxury is just a facade? Maybe behind it there are unsaid things, fears, and other people's envy. It seemed the answer had come at the most terrible moment. Now, in this corridor where she and her parents had just been brought in by anxious police officers, all the cards were being laid bare with inexorable speed. And at stake was the life and health of a person named Evelyn, who worked as a personal assistant for Jay-Z's family. The thought of Evelyn writhing in a hospital room after being stabbed is both terrifying and unsettling. Sky has replayed in her mind 100 times how it could have all happened in one short day. And now she is faced with a choice. Tell the truth, even if it breaks her father's heart, or lie to save her own skin. The growing noise in the hallway is overwhelming, and Sky herself can barely stand on her feet. She doesn't yet know what lies ahead. A storm of camera flashes, a stream of questions and condemnation, because the press is already brewing on the threshold. But the only thing that really matters, Evelyn is a person who has lost a lot of blood. What will her fate be if the doctors fail? And how will she live on if she survives but decides to tell everyone her version? The most terrible thing in this story is the realization that Sky herself provoked a chain of events that hit her entire family. And no fame of dad, no money will help to hide from the truth. How did it all start? At home, in a luxurious mansion where beige walls are decorated with paintings of modern artists and marble floors reflect the light of expensive chandeliers, Sky woke up in her spacious room where she had a separate dressing room, a bathroom, and even a small recording studio. It would seem that life is a dream, but such a feeling of emptiness settled inside her that luxury only irritated her. At breakfast, Sky sat across from her father, who, despite his busy schedule, tried to make time for family meals. He knew that his daughter had recently become quite withdrawn. She rarely interacted with anyone except one or two friends at school, and often retreated into isolation at home. "Princess, how are things at school?" he asked in a quiet voice. "It's fine," Sky answered briefly, picking at the healthy salad with her fork, which the chef had prepared, as if he had decided that the young body absolutely needed vitamin-rich dishes. "Maybe you can tell me what's new?" the father added hopefully. Sky looked at him, bit her lip, and looked away. Her relationship with her father had always been warm, but sometimes she felt like he was too busy to care about her problems. However, she truly loved him and didn't want to burden him with unnecessary worries. "I'm fine, Dad," she repeated. "I'm just a little tired. Lots of homework." Jay-Z nodded, but there was a hint of worry in his eyes. He knew that school wasn't the main reason for her depression. Sky had complained several times that Evelyn, her personal assistant, was being too harsh with her, almost bossing her around. But so far, her father had only tried to smooth things over. At that moment, that same Evelyn appeared in the kitchen, a slender and always well-groomed woman in an expensive business suit. She walked in confidently, with a notepad in her hand and a phone on her belt. "Good morning," she said dryly, quickly listing the points. "We have several meetings scheduled for today, then we'll be moving to the hotel in the evening. Please remember, we need to be there early." "Thank you," Jay-Z replied with a mirthless smile. Sky glanced at Evelyn from under her brows and let out a quiet breath. She already knew that at the end of the day, The whole family had to check into a luxury hotel because her father had a press conference scheduled early in the morning, and it was more convenient for him to be closer to the event. In addition, the hotel was always responsible for security because journalists and fans could crowd at the entrance. Skye saw Evelyn dictating something to her dad with authority. He nods, although he looks a little tense. Skye used to think that her father was a real king in his world, an all-powerful musician. But with Evelyn's appearance, it turned out that Dad often relies on her advice because she plans his life and keeps all events under control. At that moment, Skye wanted to shout, "Dad, why do you let her treat you like that?" But she kept quiet because she was used to the fact that in their house, personal assistants and managers often acted even too confidently because the work required a firm hand. The whole day was spent getting ready, meeting, moving. Skye didn't even have time to play with her dog because the driver was already waiting at the door and Evelyn was running around with the phone and commanding the security and the maids. In the evening, the whole family found themselves in a luxurious hotel where it seemed that every detail was created for comfort. White sheets, soft carpets, huge chandeliers in the halls, and a crowd of staff ready to fulfill any wish of the guests. Skye stepped into her room on a high floor, looked around. A luxurious bed, designer pillows, a panoramic window from which you can see the glittering city. But something in the atmosphere was oppressive, as if a thunderstorm was approaching. The steps of the guards patrolling the floor could be heard in the corridor. The privileges of the famous family obliged to always keep everything under control in order to avoid unwanted incidents. Skye changed into a comfortable sweater, walked around the room and realized that she needed to talk to her dad. She wanted to share her thoughts, not hold everything in. But her father was holding an important Zoom meeting with advertising partners at the time, so Skye was asked not to disturb him. And a little later, Evelyn herself knocked on the door of her room. The knock was insistent. "Skye, can I come in?" A cold voice was heard. "Come in," the girl answered in a displeased tone. Evelyn walked in, looked around the room as if checking to make sure everything was okay, and then stopped in front of Skye, folding her arms across her chest. "Your father has an important press conference tomorrow afternoon," she said without preamble. "You must be there. Behave yourself, smile, and under no circumstances interject without permission. The paparazzi will be everywhere, so no scandal, Skye." The girl pressed her lips together. She was disgusted that someone was dictating how she should behave. "I understand that already," she muttered. "Do you understand?" Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Last time at one event, you made a scene because you wanted to run away and play with other children. Because of this, your father lost several important minutes when it was time to sign the contract." Skye remembered that situation and felt embarrassed. She was lonely. She just wanted a minute of freedom. And now Evelyn suddenly talks about it in a tone as if the girl had committed a crime. "Listen," Skye said quietly, trying to contain herself. "I'm not a robot. I'm tired of everything in the family revolving around Dad's career and your orders." "Your father is a world-famous musician," Evelyn said, as if parrying the reproach. "And he pays for your comfort, your education, your clothes, your entertainment. You should appreciate it." "I appreciate my dad, but I don't want you to tell me how to live my life." Skye couldn't hold back her emotions, raising her voice. "I have the right to be a normal child, at least sometimes." "An ordinary child?" Evelyn smiled bitterly. "My dear, in your situation there is no such thing as ordinary. You have the status of a star's daughter. You need to protect the reputation that we all create together." Skye felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she didn't want to cry in front of this woman. She quickly turned to the window. "Just leave me alone," the girl said quietly. Evelyn rolled her eyes. "Make sure you don't regret your attitude. If you continue like this, I won't give you a chance to establish contact with your father. Do you think he'll be happy if he finds out how you're behaving?" Skye's heart sank. This was what she had been afraid of. Evelyn had a powerful grip on the strings leading to her father, and she could paint the girl in a negative light. Skye knew that her father, although he loved her, trusted his assistant completely in matters of organization, which meant that Evelyn's opinion carried weight. She just gritted her teeth and said nothing more. Evelyn, with a haughty look, turned and walked out, leaving Skye alone with her hurt and growing sense of protest. Skye sat on the edge of the bed, thinking about how to prove to her father that Evelyn was not as innocent as she seemed. And then a desperate thought came to her mind. If I can record her on a tape recorder or on video, how she talks, how she threatens, then Dad will definitely understand that she cannot be trusted. The idea seemed desperate, but Sky felt there was no other way. She quickly found her phone, checked the charge. Then she remembered that one of her father's suitcases contained a small device for recording podcasts. Their family had such gadgets everywhere. If I put this device somewhere in the room, when she comes to scold me again, I'll be able to record everything, Sky thought. The thought scared her and at the same time gave her determination. She really wanted to show her father how much Evelyn was pressuring and intimidating her. Maybe her father just didn't know the extent of this pressure. The rest of the evening passed like this. Sky lay awake, turning over the plan in her head. What excuse to call Evelyn? How to provoke her into rudeness? She wouldn't ask sweetly, "Scream at me." She had to artificially provoke a quarrel, hoping that Evelyn would show her true character. At dawn, Sky felt exhausted after a sleepless night, but she decided today she would do everything possible to gather evidence. She walked into the hallway trying not to be seen by the guards and took the necessary podcast device from her father's suitcase, small and inconspicuous. Then in her room, the girl cleverly hid the device behind a chair, turning on the recording. To make the sound better, she put her phone with the microphone activated next to it. All that was left was to call Evelyn. Sky took a deep breath and texted the assistant on Messenger, asking her to come to the room urgently to discuss personal matters on the schedule. It didn't take long for the answer to come. Evelyn always tried to be in control. She flew into the room as soon as she got the message. "What's the urgency, Sky?" she asked, her expression instantly stern. The girl tried to add a slight challenge to her voice. "I want to talk. I'm tired of you running my life like I'm a thing." "We've already discussed this," Evelyn frowned with displeasure. "Your life is part of your father's life, and I have to organize it." Sky clenched her fists. She knew she had to piss Evelyn off. "You're not just organizing, you're blackmailing me. You're saying that you'll tell my father nasty things about me if I don't listen to you. You think this is blackmail?" Evelyn crossed her arms, her voice rising. "Girl, I'm doing you a favor by making sure you don't do anything wrong." "A favor?" Sky chuckled. "You're really just afraid of losing your job, so you're proving to Dad that you're the only one who can keep me in line." Her heart was pounding. There was a lump in her throat, but she couldn't stop. She had to bring the conversation to the point where Evelyn would allow herself to be openly rude. "Listen," Evelyn hissed, taking a step closer. "You want me to tell you the truth? Please. Your father adores you, but he has no time to raise a capricious heiress. And if I leave, the next assistant will be even tougher. At least I know your family from the inside." Sky pretended to raise an eyebrow mockingly. "Maybe Dad doesn't know how you talk to me. If he finds out, he'll fire you in an instant." "Nobody's going to fire me," Evelyn snorted, losing her patience. "If you start complaining, I'll tell you that you're a liar, trying to set me up. And who's going to believe you? Star kids know how to put on a show." Sky felt her insides tighten. Those words sounded harsh, and they would show up on the recording. The main thing was to save the file in time if Evelyn accidentally noticed that she was recording the conversation. "You know what?" the girl continued, going on the offensive. "I won't obey you anymore. Not now. Not when we get home. I'll tell Daddy to decide for himself what to do with me." "We'll see about that," Evelyn snapped. "For now, come with me. I need to go down to the manager immediately and sign some documents on your behalf." Sky went cold. "Ano, what do you mean sign documents on my behalf? I'm 12 years old and I don't have to." "I have to if your father agrees to it," Evelyn retorted harshly. "If you want a scandal, go ahead. But then Dad will find out that you're being capricious again on your critical day." The girl felt anger welling up in her. She clenched her fists so tightly that her knuckles turned white. A little more and she might lose control and scream that all this was not normal, that she was being used like a doll. But she understood. The main thing now was to record the argument. "I'm not going anywhere," Sky breathed out, lowering her voice to a half-whisper. "Get out of my room." "How dare you talk like that?" Evelyn blushed with anger and burst into a scream that drowned out all the sounds in the room. "I said, let's go. Otherwise, I'll do everything to make sure your father punishes you to the fullest." The voice was so loud that Sky thought at one point, "This is too much. The guards will probably come running now." But no one burst in. Perhaps the corridor was too spacious, and the sound did not reach the guard posts. Sky backed away deliberately, as if afraid of physical contact. Evelyn instantly realized that she was being overly aggressive and quickly pulled herself together. "Tell your father you're sick, will you?" she hissed, her lips pressed into a thin line. "And I'll say you're just being capricious over trifles. and we'll see who he listens to. Sky didn't answer. She just looked into Evelyn's eyes with all the determination she could muster. I said, "Get out, or I'll call security myself." Evelyn glared again, turned around and ran out of the room, slamming the door so hard it almost flew off its hinges. A heavy silence fell over the room. Sky took a deep breath and walked over to the hidden equipment. She turned off the recording and checked that the file was saved on her phone. Her heart was pounding so loudly that it seemed to be tearing her chest apart. There, on the recording, there should be Evelyn's words and her threats. Sky hoped that now her father would see the assistant's true face. After this conversation, Sky was completely shaking with adrenaline. She understood that she had taken the first step. But how to present this recording to her father? He was now at the other end of the floor, preparing for a press conference, talking to PR managers. I must wait for a convenient moment, the girl decided, and show him what I wrote down. But as often happens, life does not give time for calm reflection. Literally a few minutes later, Sky heard loud voices in the corridor. She went to the door and opened it slightly. 2 security guards, one of the managers, were gathered there, and they were all arguing with Evelyn about something very tense. "What recording? What are you talking about?" Evelyn asked in a raised voice. "We heard screams," the guard, a strong middle-aged man, insisted. "We're sure you've driven the girl crazy again, and she's only 12 years old. You have no right to put pressure on her like that." "And what business is it of yours?" Evelyn challenged. "Mind your own security. Don't interfere in family matters." "This isn't a family thing." The manager shook his head, clutching a bunch of keys in his hand. "Sky is a child, and you yell at her so loudly that the walls shake. Do you understand that if she complains to her father, everything will end very badly for you?" Evelyn seemed furious. She bit her lip, glaring at the guards and then at the manager. Sky, standing in the doorway, suddenly felt mixed emotions. On the one hand, she didn't want anyone to punish Evelyn right now. After all, she needed to show her father the recording herself. On the other hand, it was nice that at least one adult stood up for her. At that moment, one of the guards noticed Sky peeking out from behind the door. He beckoned to her with his hand. "Sky, are you okay? Were you hurt?" The girl stepped into the corridor, clutching the phone in her hand so that no one would guess that she had already written everything down. I just wanted her to leave me alone," Sky admitted, trying to speak loudly enough for Evelyn to hear. "She was yelling at me." "I didn't scream," Evelyn flared up, making a sharp gesture. "These guards made it all up. The girl is provoking me herself." "Provoking what? Threats and insults?" The manager responded, catching her glance. "I think you're going too far." Evelyn flushed. "What do you all know? This 12-year-old princess is not as innocent as she wants to seem." One of the guards snorted. "What are you talking about? That Sky is trying so hard to blacken my name in her father's eyes," Evelyn exclaimed. "She's his little pet, and if she complains, I could get fired. Am I wrong?" Sky clutched the phone in her hand so tightly she almost broke the casing. She was ready to start recording right there, but she didn't have the courage to make a public scene without her father. "I don't want you to get fired," Sky finally said. "I just want you to stop bullying me." Evelyn opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but at that moment a maid appeared from around the corner of the corridor, hurriedly passing with a cart. On this cart lay several clean towels, cleaning kits, and for some reason, a sharp kitchen knife. Perhaps one of the staff asked her to pass something to the cook. The maid stopped abruptly, noticing the tense company. The hallway became uncomfortable. Too many people. Too many emotions. Evelyn suddenly rushed towards Sky, as if she wanted to take her phone away. "Give it back," she said through her teeth. "I'm sure you were writing something down." "What?" Sky recoiled, clutching the phone to her chest in fear. The guard blocked Evelyn's path. "Don't you dare touch the girl." "Don't interfere." Evelyn waved her hand, and then something terrible happened. She touched the guard's knee, stumbled, slipped on a damp patch of carpet, apparently left by the cleaning that hadn't dried yet, and almost fell. At that very moment, the maid frightened herself, jerked the cart sharply, and a kitchen knife fell from it with a crash. It all happened in a split second. The guard bent down to grab Evelyn, the knife hit the floor, people flinched, and no one noticed the exact moment the blade flashed in the air. Sky only heard a loud scream, a desperate female scream. "Ah, ah, ah!" Evelyn gasped and grabbed her side. Everyone froze in horror when they saw blood appearing on Evelyn's blouse. The guard grabbed a walkie-talkie from his pocket, shouting at the same time, "We need a doctor. Urgently, urgently. The maid pressed her hand to her lips in panic, afraid to move. The manager rushed to Evelyn, trying to apply pressure to the wound to stop the bleeding. Sky stood rooted to the spot, unable to move. All she could remember was the knife falling to the floor and somehow horribly hitting Evelyn's side. Either the blade had accidentally bounced off, or someone had accidentally pushed her onto the knife. It all happened so fast that no one could figure out the exact sequence. The blood appearing in red stains on Evelyn's clothes made people rush about in panic. "I can't breathe," Evelyn moaned, sinking to the floor. The guard, still supporting her, shouted into the radio to someone. "Call an ambulance, quickly." A couple of minutes later, although Sky couldn't estimate the time exactly, the rest of the guards burst into the corridor, some of the hotel staff, and almost immediately after that, the medics that Sky's father had called appeared. He himself had rushed in after hearing the screams. "Oh my God, what happened here?" the father shouted, seeing Evelyn writhing on the floor. Sky, shaking all over, couldn't say a word. She only saw her dad turn pale and then lean toward Evelyn. "Hang in there, Evelyn. Everything will be fine," he said, trying to stay calm. The nurse gave her a quick injection while bandaging the wound to slow the blood loss. But the blood continued to ooze. Evelyn needed to be rushed to the hospital. Luckily, large hotels always have more or less worked out protocols for emergency situations. As she was being carried away on a stretcher, the police arrived. 2 police officers, a stern-faced man and a piercing-eyed woman, stood across the corridor, pushing the crowd aside. "Please maintain order. Now we need to understand what happened," the policewoman said. Sky stood aside, feeling like her whole world was falling apart. What had she done? She had really provoked the fight. And the knife? How could a knife have ended up underfoot? And most importantly, who would be blamed now? The father came up to her and grabbed her by the shoulders. "Sky, honey, are you hurt?" No," she whispered. "Dad, I don't know how this happened." "Shh, don't panic," he said quietly, although he himself seemed to be on the verge of a nervous breakdown. "We'll figure it out." The police began questioning. First, they questioned eyewitnesses, the security guard, the maid, the manager. Each gave their own version. The knife fell, Evelyn stumbled, the knife wounded her, or someone accidentally pushed her. No one could say for sure that everything happened in a moment of chaotic confusion. When it was Sky's turn, her legs were buckling. The policewoman looked at her sternly. "Were you here? Can you tell me exactly how Evelyn was injured?" Sky felt a lump in her throat, but she remembered her father's words. "Don't panic." I saw how she wanted to take my phone away from me, and then someone pushed the cart. The knife fell, and..." The girl's voice trembled. "I'm very scared." "I understand," the policewoman nodded, writing something down in her notebook. "But you didn't pick up the knife yourself?" "No," Sky exclaimed. "I would never do that." "Okay," the woman frowned, looking thoughtfully at the girl. "We'll continue the interrogation soon, when you've calmed down a bit, but you have to tell us everything you know." Sky nodded silently. Before all this confusion had settled, the medics had already taken Evelyn to the nearest clinic. There, in the emergency room, she was immediately taken for emergency surgery because the wound was deep. Sky's father and Sky herself also went to the hospital. She walked into the sterile white room, feeling her legs go weak. Medical staff were rushing back and forth, trying to save the victim's life. Sky couldn't believe that she had only planned to record a rude conversation that morning, and now Evelyn was actually fighting for her life. The father stood to the side, pale, fiddling with his phone. The despair in his eyes was clear. After all, if Evelyn died, it would be a terrible blow to his reputation, and most importantly, it would be the death of a man who had worked with him for many years. Yes, perhaps their relationship was not ideal, but still. Sky listened to snatches of phrases. "She's losing blood." "To the operating room, quickly. We'll do what we can." The police arrived soon after. They behaved professionally, asked everyone not to interfere with the doctor's work, and invited them to a small consultation room to talk with the family. The policewoman asked a direct question. "Mr. J.Z., do you have any idea who might have intentionally attacked your assistant?" "Attack?" he asked, seeming to realize for the first time that someone might suspect a premeditated crime. "Do you think someone stabbed her on purpose?" "We're looking into all the versions," the policewoman answered evasively, "but we already have conflicting testimony." Sky cringed. She realized that if some of the witnesses said that the girl wanted to get back at Evelyn, the police might accuse her of deliberate provocation. It was an accident, the manager, who was also present, suddenly said. I saw the knife fall off the cart. No one deliberately stuck it into Evelyn's side. We'll check the surveillance cameras, the policewoman said sternly. But we need your cooperation too. Of course, Sky's father added quietly. The policeman standing nearby looked down at the girl. You were in the center of the conflict. We hope that you will tell us how it all happened, without omissions. Sky swallowed hard, knowing she had to decide to speak. But was she going to admit she'd been recording the conversation and goading Evelyn? And what horrors might that lead to? There came a moment when Sky felt that there was no point in hiding the truth any longer. She stared at the floor. The room seemed cramped. The girl's mother had also arrived at the hospital. She was standing a little to the side, clenching her fingers in confusion. Sky knew that her father also wanted to know why Evelyn and she had quarreled. So the girl gathered her courage and said quietly, Dad, I need to tell you something. Of course, he looked at her worried. Speak, my princess. Evelyn, she's been bullying me for a long time. Sky tried not to sob. I wanted to record our conversation to show you how aggressive she is. And that's what started our conflict in the hallway. She wanted to take the phone away because she saw that I might have evidence. The father frowned. Amakuri, what kind of recording is this? Sky nodded and pulled her phone out of her pocket, her hands shaking and tears welling up in her eyes. I turned on the recorder. She threatened me, said terrible things. I wanted to defend myself and prove that I was not lying. And then everything started spinning. I didn't think that it would end in blood. A thick silence fell over the office. Sky's mother covered her mouth with her hand, shocked that her daughter would dare to take such a risk. The policemen exchanged glances. The father turned pale, clenching his fists, but tried to speak in an even voice. You wanted me to fire Evelyn? I was scared, the girl whispered, feeling tears welling up. I thought if you heard her threatening, you would drive her away yourself. Why didn't you come to me first? He asked, almost pleadingly. Sky just lowered her eyes. I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. The father covered his face with his hand and exhaled loudly. A policewoman intervened. Girl, can we listen to this recording? It might help establish a motive. Yeah, but there's nothing about a knife, Sky muttered. Just the way she screamed and insulted me. Give us access anyway. The policeman pulled out a special evidence bag. We need to make sure that this was really a conflict that could have led to a fight. The father was lost in thought, but then he said, Sky, give them the recording. She silently handed over the phone. It was in her hands, and inside was the very same recorded audio track. From there, events moved at breakneck speed. The police seized the recording to verify its authenticity and also requested video footage from the hotel's cameras. Meanwhile, alarming news came from the clinic that Evelyn had suffered severe blood loss and her life was hanging by a thread. While the operation was going on, Sky sat in the hallway with her parents and security, shivering from the cold, although the air conditioners were set to a normal temperature. People from her father's entourage, having learned about what had happened, immediately began to fuss. They expected that the press and paparazzi could break into the hospital. And so it happened. After a while, reporters with cameras and microphones were already pounding on the doors, shouting, Tell me, is it true that Jay-Z's daughter was involved in the attack? Was it revenge or an accident? The guards pushed the journalists away so that they could not get to Sky. The girl felt herself descending into an abyss of fear. When a police representative appeared in the corridor, he said briefly, We neither confirm nor deny the version of a deliberate attack, but we have an audio recording indicating a conflict. These words were enough for reporters to inflate the sensation. Articles poured onto the internet. Did the daughter of a famous rapper commit a massacre against her assistant? Or a 12-year-old heiress, a potential aggressor? My father was furious when he saw these headlines. He demanded that the false gossip be immediately refuted, but the PR team insisted that without official police findings, any comments would only add fuel to the fire. Meanwhile, the operation continued. The doctors worked to save Evelyn, stitching the wound, stopping the bleeding, transfusing plasma. The realities of medicine do not allow such a serious injury to be healed instantly, but the doctors did everything they could within the limits of their authority. Sky struggled to figure out how to feel about what was happening. On the one hand, she hated Evelyn for her threats and blackmail, but on the other hand, this woman could die now. Sky did not want her to die. Moreover, blaming herself, She anxiously awaited news about the victim's condition. Alarms sounded from the monitors, and doctors rushed into the operating room, closing the doors in front of Sky's eyes. She stood with her forehead against the cold wall, imagining blood and the blade of a knife that seemed to still appear before her eyes. She understood that if Evelyn did not survive, she would never be forgiven for this story. Even if she did not take the knife in her hands, the media and society would claim that Sky was guilty of the tragedy. The father, noticing her pale face, came up and hugged her tightly. "I'm sorry I didn't notice your problems," he whispered. "I should have protected you sooner." Sky burst into tears in his arms, speechless. She felt scared, like she was stepping into the void, and no one knew how it would end. Finally, the surgical team released a doctor who declared Evelyn alive but in serious condition, and she was transferred to intensive care. The first few hours would be crucial. Sky felt a weight drop on her heart, a big one, but with a drop of relief. She's still alive. There's hope, flashed through her mind. "We're doing everything we can," the doctor said, addressing the father and everyone gathered. "Right now, we need time to stabilize her condition." The police were also there, ready to continue their investigation, but the doctor urged them to leave the patient alone, at least until the threat to her life had passed. Father Sky sighed heavily. "Thank you, doctor." Sky's parents decided that they needed to temporarily retire from the press. They rented a separate floor in the hospital, paying a decent amount of money so that journalists could not get to the girl. But it was already impossible to stop the gossip on the internet. All the news portals savored the details, not missing the opportunity to invent new ones. Rapper's daughter made a scene, drove her assistant to stab her. Such headlines flashed across the screens. The comments raged with debate. Some defended Sky, pointing out that she was just a child and could not have intentionally injured an adult woman. Others furiously demanded, investigate the privileges of star families and punish the guilty. Sky covered her ears when she overheard one of her father's assistants reading the articles out loud. She felt as if she had been branded. The psychologist on duty at the hospital, named Maria, tried to talk to Sky. The girl, exhausted, was lying on a hospital couch in one of the service rooms. "Sky, honey, you need to talk," Maria said softly. "I know this is a terrible situation, but you need to find the words to express everything you feel." "It's my fault," Sky muttered, hugging her knees to her chest. "If I hadn't decided to record it, none of this would have happened." "You didn't take the knife," the psychologist reminded. "The fact that the knife fell and injured her was a coincidence." "But I started this whole conflict," Sky said bitterly. Maria kept talking soothingly, emphasizing that the investigation would show that it was an accident. But Sky only sighed bitterly, because inside her lived a dark feeling of guilt. Meanwhile, the police continued to collect statements. Sky was called in for another interview. The policewoman, the one with the piercing gaze, turned out to be not so tough. She listened to Sky sympathetically. "So, you confirm that there was a verbal conflict between you and Evelyn?" The policewoman clarified. "Yes." Sky looked down. "I called her to my room, turned on the recording, and tried to provoke her into saying what she often says in private. And she noticed that she was being recorded?" "Yes, I noticed the phone and snatched it," Sky said barely audibly. "Or rather, I tried to snatch it. Then I ran out into the hallway, and that crush had already happened there." The woman nodded and took notes. "Thank you. We will watch the video from the cameras, compare the data. So far, the picture is that the knife fell by accident, but there was a conflict. I didn't want things to turn out this way." Sky exhaled painfully. "Nobody wanted to," the policewoman replied, getting up from the table. "But now we need to wait for Evelyn's testimony when she comes to her senses." Those words made Sky's blood run cold. What if Evelyn woke up and decided to blame everything on her? Say that the girl pulled the knife herself? If that woman was capable of intimidation, then she was also capable of deception. The evening of that same nightmarish day came unnoticed. In the temporary rest room for relatives of patients, Sky's mother and father found a corner for themselves. The girl sat with them, wrapped in a blanket. "Maybe we should hire the best lawyers right now?" Mom asked, looking at Dad. "If Evelyn regains consciousness and says something against Sky, it will be too late." "We already have a lawyer," the father answered gloomily. "He knows. He's collecting statements from the guards, the maid, the manager. They'll all confirm that the knife was on the cart." "Dad," Sky called quietly, looking at the floor. "And you don't blame me?" He looked at her, his eyes filled with sadness mixed with fatherly love. "I don't know how to answer." I blame myself for not noticing how bad you were. If I had sorted out the situation earlier, you wouldn't have taken these desperate measures. Sky sighed. She felt a little better hearing that. Deep down, she was afraid that her father was disappointed in her because her actions had led to a dangerous situation and a huge scandal. We'll get through this together, the mother added, hugging her daughter. The main thing is to stick together. At that moment, Sky felt that perhaps for the first time in a long time, she felt the real warmth of her parents. But there was still the press to deal with and the doctors to wait for about Evelyn's condition. That night, Sky couldn't sleep peacefully either in the hospital room or in the car where they went to rest for a while. Paparazzi were on duty at the entrance, flashing their flashes at every step of the family. Mr. Jay-Z, is it true that your daughter held a knife? One reporter shouted. How are you going to settle this matter? Shouted another. Sky cowered in terror as the guards cleared a path, and her father had to hover over her to shield her from the barrage of tactless questions. Dad, I don't want to be in the middle of this, Sky said in a trembling whisper as they climbed into the car. I know, dear, he replied, patting her shoulder. We'll find a way to reduce their presence. They won't go away, Sky whispered bitterly. They want a scoop, and they got it. The driver quickly drove away from the hospital. Security blocked access to journalists. But Sky understood that this was only a temporary break because the press would not miss the opportunity to inflate the scandal. The next morning, though Sky hadn't slept much, her father received a call from the hospital. Evelyn had briefly regained consciousness, but then slipped back into semi-consciousness. The doctor said her condition was still serious, but no longer critical. So she can survive, Sky said, barely breathing. Thank God, the father breathed. Then he frowned. But if she talks, who knows what she'll tell the police? We know the truth, Dad, the girl quietly noted. I hope the guards and the manager will confirm it too. He only pressed his lips together, realizing that even the truth confirmed by witnesses does not always stop evil tongues. Meanwhile, a new wave appeared in the news. Evelyn has come to her senses. We are waiting for sensational revelations. No one hid the fact that Sky's fate could now be decided by the testimony of the victim. It later emerged that one of the scandalous TV channels had decided to broadcast live from the hospital lobby, inviting experts to discuss the situation. Sky's father, upon learning of this, was furious. He wanted to ban the filming, but it turned out that the channel had received permission from the hospital management to do general reporting without access to patients. Those are hyenas, my father muttered through his teeth, looking out the window from the top floor. They just want to make a talk show out of someone else's misfortune. Sky, standing nearby, saw the people below bustling about with cameras and microphones, eagerly searching for a sensation. She felt her heart skip a beat, as if it was about to jump out of her chest. Dad, she said quietly, maybe I should come out and tell them everything as it is. Let them hear the truth from me. He looked at her stunned. Sky, are you crazy? This crowd will just tear you apart. But they're already making up God knows what, the girl replied. Maybe it would be better to come forward ourselves and explain that it was an accident? Mom intervened, asking Sky to take her time, since the lawyer advised against making any big statements yet. Okay, the girl sighed, wiping away a tear. I just can't stand it when they call me a little murderer. At these words, her father's heart seemed to clench. He sat down next to her and pulled her close. Princess, you are not a murderer, and no one who knows us will believe a lie. But Sky saw on social media that people were willing to believe any big rumor. Left alone in the room with her father, Sky decided it was time to have a frank conversation. Dad, tell me honestly, are you mad at me? She asked, looking into his eyes. I'm angry with myself, he admitted after a short pause. I saw that Evelyn was overstepping the mark, but I thought she was just too hard at her job. And you were silent, rarely complaining. I thought you were on her side, Sky whispered, wrapping her arms around herself. When she had that kind of authority, she kept saying you did everything. How could she say you trusted her completely? I trusted her only because it was convenient for the business part of my life, but not in matters of raising a child. His voice trembled slightly. I guess I made a distinction. Career matters are for Evelyn, and family matters are for you and Mom. But I was wrong to let her invade your personal boundaries. Sky hung her head, remembering how she dreamed of being able to decide for herself where to go and what to wear at least sometimes. Tell me, she asked suddenly, if Evelyn survives and tells the police that I deliberately pushed her onto the knife, will you believe me? He shook his head, hugging the girl to his chest. I know you're not capable of this, Besides, there are witnesses and camera footage. What if she says I wanted revenge? Sky persisted. Is your desire to tell me the truth about her behavior revenge? He answered quietly, looking into her eyes. You are a child under duress, and in any case, you did not want her dead. Sky let out a soft sob, feeling a mixture of relief and despair. By mid-afternoon, police reported that Evelyn had finally stabilized and was ready to testify. Investigators immediately headed to the intensive care unit to get the truth about the incident from her. Sky wanted to know what exactly Evelyn would say, but she was not allowed into the room, citing laws. Minors cannot participate without supervision, and the matter at hand was serious. Mom and Dad also remained outside the door, waiting tensely. Inside, there was only the investigator, the doctor, and Evelyn herself, lying with sensors on her chest and IVs in her veins. After a while, the investigator came out with a stony face. Everyone rushed to him with questions. He only answered briefly. Evelyn claims that she did not see who pushed the knife and that it could have been an accident. She says that Sky did confront her, but there was no physical violence on her part. Sky felt herself relax a little inside, so Evelyn hadn't put the blame on the girl. But then the investigator added, however, she claims that Sky put psychological pressure on her, rudely provoked her, and recorded conversations. That's true, Sky said timidly, hiding behind her father's back. But I don't... We will find out all the details. The investigator raised his palm, calling for silence. Despite Evelyn's admission that the knife attack was accidental, a major sensation had already ripened in the press. Channels vied with each other to invite experts who reveled in assumptions. Perhaps Sky had planned to get rid of her assistant in advance in order to gain freedom? Maybe the girl has some mental problems. Sky saw bits of these broadcasts on the television in the hospital lobby. She felt sick. She felt unfairly judged. The father negotiated with lawyers, deciding whether to sue for slander. But the lawyers persuaded him to wait until the police investigation was completed so that he would have an indisputable legal basis. The difficult time dragged on with endless intensity, although only about a day had passed since the tragedy. Sky was on the verge of a breakdown. Insomnia, emotional breakdown, fear of cameras. She tried to escape from the hospital several times, just to avoid seeing all these people. But her father dissuaded her, saying that until Evelyn gave a full testimony, it was better to stay close. Psychologist Maria visited the girl every hour, gave her breathing exercises, explained how to cope with stress. But Sky still could not find peace. I don't know if I'll ever be able to live a normal life again, she said, her voice breaking as she sat in a small counseling room. It feels like I'm in a cage, and the only way out is through another scandal. Our job is to help you get through this, Maria assured, trying to sound encouraging. After a short time, Sky's father decided that the best defense was a good offense. He talked Sky into giving an interview to a major journalist who was considered relatively objective. This was not a scandalous paparazzo, but a respected reporter who would listen. Are you ready? The father asked, looking into the girl's eyes. If I don't say anything, they'll just make up whatever they want, Sky answered quietly. It's better to try to tell it like it is. As a result, in the evening, when journalists had already occupied the area, Sky and her father went out into the hospital hall. There was already a camera, light, and microphone there. The paparazzi screamed, trying to get closer, but they were held back by security. I'll be right there, Sky's father whispered as she sat down in the chair across from the reporter. The journalist introduced himself and began with cautious questions. Sky, can you tell me in a few words what happened? Sky sighed, feeling the cameras burning through her, but she spoke clearly. It was an accident. The knife fell off the cart, and Evelyn accidentally came across it. Yes, there was a conflict between us, but I did not pick up the knife and did not try to hurt anyone. The reporter nodded. Can you tell why there was a conflict? Sky looked at her father, then decided, because she threatened me, showed aggression, and I wanted to record it on a dictaphone so that Dad would know the truth. So you wrote down her words? Yes, the father confirmed, and now the police have the recording. The reporter looked with understanding. May I ask how you feel now, knowing that Evelyn is in the hospital? Sky swallowed. I'm scared and ashamed. I didn't want it to get to the point of blood. I hope she gets better. These words were spoken in a silence broken only by the clicking of cameras, and suddenly someone from the crowd of journalists shouted, It's not true. You're just trying to avoid punishment. Sky turned pale, Her father came closer, put his hand on her shoulder. The reporter gestured for silence. Last question, Sky. What do you want from society and the press in this situation? The girl's lips trembled. She could not restrain herself and said, I want you to understand. Yes, I was wrong. I provoked a conversation. But I am not a monster. I am a child who was intimidated. And I ask only one thing, to understand the truth and not to invent sensations. With these words, she stood up, confused, and grabbed her father's arm. The interview ended, and the security immediately pushed the crowd back. Late that evening, the police reported that Evelyn's condition had more or less stabilized, and she had asked to speak to reporters on her own. Everyone was stunned by the news. Less than a day had passed since the operation, and Evelyn already wanted to speak publicly. Under the supervision of doctors, only one reporter and a cameraman were allowed into the room. The rest watched via live broadcast. Sky's father, having learned that a broadcast was being prepared, trembled with fear. What if she blamed Sky? Sky was also trembling, feeling that everything would be decided now. When the broadcast began, Evelyn appeared on the screen, lying in a hospital bed, pale, with a bandage on her side, with IV tubes running to her arm. But there was a familiar cold determination in her eyes. The journalist asked the question, Evelyn, can you confirm that the daughter of a famous musician stabbed you? At these words, Sky swallowed nervously. Evelyn raised her head, breathing heavily. I won't say it was her. I didn't see Sky holding a knife. It all happened too fast. But yes, we had a conflict. And this girl was recording my words, trying to catch me in a bad attitude. The reporter frowned slightly. So you admit that you behaved rudely? I admit I was doing my job, Evelyn said coldly, wincing in pain. Her family needed discipline, and Sky apparently wanted to feel independent. But what about the injury itself? The reporter persisted. It was an accident, Evelyn finally admitted out loud. The knife fell, and I stumbled on it. No one hit me on purpose. Sky, looking at the screen, almost burst into tears of relief. So she's not lying, not trying to blame it all on me, the girl thought. But then Evelyn added words that made Sky scream internally. However, this situation happened because of Sky's provocation. If she hadn't started spying on me, calling me out, starting a fight, I wouldn't have ended up in the hallway where the knife fell. Sky felt her heart pounding in her throat. Evelyn was telling the whole country that she didn't forgive the girl for injuring her. The broadcast with Evelyn's confessions was instantly broadcast by all channels. Some headlines wrote, Evelyn drops direct accusation of attempted murder. Others, Evelyn believes that Sky provoked the tragedy. The community was divided into two camps. Some believed that accident was just a defensive formulation, and the girl was perhaps more guilty than she said. Others pointed out that since the victim herself claims that no one stabbed her, it was just a chain of accidents, and Sky should not suffer from slander. Sky herself, physically and mentally tired, did not know how to react to this state of affairs. Yes, she is not officially accused of a deliberate crime, but the reputational blow is terrible. Who will believe her tears if everyone wants a scandal? After the news broke, police said they would conduct a preliminary investigation and likely close the case as an accident. But journalists continued to sound the alarm, demanding justice. Eventually, Sky's father decided to take the girl away from the hustle and bustle, temporarily moving to a country house where the media does not have easy access. The family tried to collect their thoughts. The father consulted with lawyers, the mother tried to calm her daughter down, and Sky fell into painful thoughts. It seemed to her that life would never be the same again. And while she might officially escape punishment, inside her heart there was a burning realization. I was the catalyst for events that nearly caused a man's death. A few hours later, all this happened within the framework of 2 terrifying days. The news came that Evelyn wanted to contact her family. She asked to pass on a letter in which she outlined her view of the situation. Sky, having learned of this, took the letter in the presence of her parents. They were sitting in a country house at a large dining table lit by soft lamps. The girl began to read aloud. Dear family, I know you will see me as a monster or a victim, perhaps both. I do not deny that there was harshness in words and actions, but I did it out of a desire to meet high standards and maintain order. I was afraid of losing my job and respect. As for Sky, I don't think she's evil. She's a child who wants to be heard. Yes, she provoked my anger, but I also drove her to the desperate step of recording. Now we're both in a terrible situation. I almost lost my life, and Sky is under a barrage of accusations. It's unlikely that we'll ever get back together. I'll leave town when I'm discharged, but I want you to know that I won't lie to the police and say this was an attempt. While my hurt and resentment will remain, I know that I'm partly to blame for this. Let Sky live on without torturing herself, and let her father draw conclusions on how to properly protect his daughter. Sincerely, Evelyn. When Sky finished reading, tears were rolling down her cheeks. Her father sat with a frown on his forehead, and her mother covered her eyes with her hand, holding back her emotions. The next morning, the end of the second day, the police officially announced that they saw no signs of intentional harm, that everything pointed to an accident caused by a crush and a drop knife. The case was closed administratively, without initiating criminal charges against Sky. However, public opinion did not subside. Some continued to spit vitriol on social media, calling Sky the girl who got away with it because of her daddy's money. Others supported her, saying she was the victim of an aggressive assistant and was simply trying to protect herself. Sky herself, hearing that the police investigation was over, did not feel any joy. She still felt a heavy feeling in her soul, as if she had remained at the scene of the crime. "It's all over," her father said, coming up behind her and hugging her carefully. "Really?" Sky whispered, looking at her reflection in the mirror. "I don't think it's ever going to end." "But now you are free from accusations," he said softly, "and Evelyn will recover. Her life is no longer in danger." "Dad," Sky asked quietly, "can we be a normal family again?" He smiled bitterly. "Our family has never been ordinary, but I promise that I will be more attentive to you now, and I will never allow anyone to infringe on your rights again." Deep down, Sky knew that returning to her carefree childhood was no longer possible. This scandal would forever be a part of her story. In the evening, Sky sat by the window of her country house and looked at the dark sky covered with clouds. The rain lashed the glass. The wind howled behind the walls. It seemed that nature itself responded to the storm of her feelings. She remembered how just 2 days ago in a luxurious hotel she had been lying on a soft bed and racking her brains over how to prove to her father that Evelyn was bullying her. 2 days, and it seemed like an eternity had passed, exhausting her nerves. Sky clutched the phone tightly in her hands. There in her memory was that very recording. The girl didn't know whether to keep it or delete it. This was the proof that changed everyone's fate. "Maybe I should just delete it," she whispered, looking at the file icon. But her finger froze on the screen. She was afraid to erase her pain at once. And what would that change? Suddenly the phone rang, causing Sky to jump in fright. The number was unknown. The girl, embarrassed, picked up the receiver. "Hello?" The answer was muffled, the voice was weak, but she recognized it immediately. "Hello, it's me, Evelyn." Sky couldn't believe her ears. Evelyn? How did she get the number? Of course, she was her father's assistant. She had all the contacts at her disposal. "What do you want?" the girl asked quietly. "Just to say, I'm sorry for ruining your life a little. I'm lying here, and I have a lot of time to think." Sky didn't answer, clutching the phone so tightly that her fingers turned white. "I know it's hard for you," Evelyn continued. "It's hard for me, but I don't want you to feel like you killed me. I've admitted it was an accident. You don't have to blame yourself." The girl couldn't hold back and sobbed, a tear rolling down her cheek. "But why did it all come down to such threats and shouting? We could have just talked." "I was afraid of losing my job, my position of influence," Evelyn said dryly. "And you were probably afraid that I would make your life hell. We both had reasons for pushing things to the extreme." Sky heard Evelyn breathing heavily. It must have hurt her even to speak. "I don't know why you're calling me now," the girl muttered, looking darkly into the gloom outside the window. "I wanted to make sure you understood that I would not act against you. We will part as enemies, but I do not want your blood. Yes, I am offended. Yes, you provoked me, and in the end I am lying here with a knife wound. But that is no reason to ruin your life." Sky sniffled again, brushed away her tears, and replied, "Thank you for calling. I didn't wish you death." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Goodbye," Evelyn said softly and hung up. Sky lowered the phone, shaking all over. She hadn't expected to hear the voice of this woman, who had seemed like a scary demon just a short time ago. Now the voice sounded human, with an acknowledgement of shared pain. The father's voice was heard from behind the door of the room. "Sky, is everything okay?" She couldn't answer right away. A storm of emotions was raging inside her. Sky forced out, "Yes, Probably, but her heart was racing. Strong feelings were overwhelming her, not allowing her to breathe. The moment seemed like an eternity. When her father entered the room, he saw Sky sitting on the floor, pale, hugging her knees. She was sobbing, and the tears were rolling down her cheeks as if they could not stop. "Daughter, what happened?" He knelt down next to her. "She called," Sky moaned. "Evelyn. She said she wouldn't take revenge, and that she hated me, but she didn't want to hurt me." Surprise flashed in the father's eyes, then alarm. He hugged his daughter, but she almost slipped out of his arms as if in a fit of despair. "Dad, I'm tired. I can't take it anymore. All these cameras, all these people screaming that I'm a murderer, all these experts telling me what's wrong with me." She spoke in one breath, shaking with sobs. "I just want to be a 12-year-old child who sleeps peacefully and plays with the dogs in the yard." He tried to calm her down, saying, "Hang in there, Sky, I beg you. I'll do my best to close this scandal." But Sky almost screamed, "Don't close it. Tell them the truth. Tell them I'm not a monster. Tell them I just wanted to be heard." Her father held her close, letting her release all the pain that had built up. Sky cried, almost choking, and at that moment she felt like she was breaking apart from the inside. Mom, hearing the screams, ran into the room. Seeing the state the girl was in, she gasped and rushed to her, covering Sky with her arms together with her father, as if protecting her from the whole world. The girl sobbed and suddenly cried out in tears. "I don't want to live in this crazy world anymore, where any mistake turns into a nightmare." Hearing these words, the mother and father turned pale. The mother hugged her daughter tighter, whispering, "Don't you dare say that. Your life is priceless. We love you." Sky just shook her head, continuing to pour out her pain. "I can't." "You can," her father growled, tears in his voice. "You're strong, Sky. You can survive this. We'll find a way out together, I promise." But the girl still cried, trembling like a cornered animal. Her father and mother understood that her heart was breaking from fear and guilt. Lightning flashed in the windows. Thunder rumbled in the sky. It seemed that nature itself was shaking in time with Sky's mental storm. The parents, overcome with despair, could not find words to instantly calm the child, who in just 2 days had seen the most ruthless sides of show business and the crazy press. Sky felt a wild desire to fight being born inside her, amidst the tears and panic, to fight for the right to remain a human being and not a puppet in this circus. Let everything collapse. Let there be thunder, camera flashes, screams all around, but she will not give up. She looked into her father's eyes, and he, seeing this fire, nodded. "We will do everything so that you can live the way you want." The girl's lips trembled and she whispered, "Just don't leave me." "Never," Mom swore. The roar of another thunder shook the house. The windows shook from the blow of the wind. And in this furious storm, against the background of a momentary blinding glare of lightning, Sky squeezed the hand of her father and mother as if the only thread connecting her to life. There was no outcome, no clear denouement, only tortured souls, overwhelmed with uncontrollable emotions and crying under the sound of the rain. No one knew what awaited Sky ahead, what new trials would befall her tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. But at that moment she stood before the abyss, overwhelmed by an indomitable desire to crawl out and live. The rain pounded the glass like someone's nervous fists. The light in the room flickered from the thunderstorm flashes. And at that moment, when it seemed as if the sky was about to collapse, Sky screamed through her tears in the squall wind, addressing the whole world. "I will not give up. Do you hear me? Let everyone shout whatever they want, but I am alive." And the echo of her scream, powerful and heartrending, rolled along the walls. The mother and father pressed the girl to themselves, and she, trembling all over, repeated with sobs, "I'm alive, and it's not my fault." The thunder roared with such force that the house shook, and a flash of lightning illuminated the black sky without a single star in the windows. It seemed as if the storm itself had closed in around them, giving the moment a bright, magical color. It was at this sharp peak, where emotions pulsated in a breaking heart, that Sky's story hung, as if on the very edge of an abyss, where it was unknown whether she would fall down or find the strength to hold on. But in the eyes of Jay-Z's 12-year-old daughter, who just 2 days ago had been a quiet teenager, there was now a determined light. Like a flash of lightning, it illuminated the darkness around her, calling out to everyone watching this drama from behind the glass of screens and newspaper pages. No conclusions, no calming ending, only this seething cry of life and the thirst to endure, no matter what. Like a thunderous blow of a talk show, just as loud and furious, the story rushes to an unpredictable ending that makes hearts beat at a frantic pace and does not allow you to escape from the shock. The end never came. It only sent waves of pain, fear, and hope through the air, leaving everyone holding their breath in anticipation of what would happen next.